This week on the Greener Business Show, we speak with Jaime Salm, who together with his brother Isaac founded the sustainable design store MIO in 2001. Based out of Philadelphia, they also have a small distribution center in Cologne, Germany. Jaime, thanks for joining us today. And could you tell us how you and your brother Isaac developed the idea for a sustainable design store?
Well, basically, it's a design studio, and how it all got started was when I went to school at the University of the Arts. I graduated, and my thesis had been focused on furnishings for students made out of recycled materials. When I graduated, the thesis was actually some of the products of the thesis were being sold in a couple local retailers here in the city, and Anthropology, which is part of the Urban Outfitters group, went to one of those stores, saw the material that we had made out of the products out of, and they got very interested. And I realized at that moment that basically sustainability was not just this concept that I had learned in school, but something that could be applied in real life. A consulting project was born out of that matchup when they saw that material. And I took the money from that project and I decided I was going to start a company that would focus on sustainability, on creating furnishings that were sustainable. And it was in a way kind of naive because I had no experience. But on the other hand, I was really trying to take these ideas, these very pure ideas about what I had learned, what sustainability could be, and where I thought it could go. And I started kicking this back and forth between my brother and myself. We ended up talking too long. So he quit his job. He used to work as a financial analyst for Kimberly-Clark, and he decided to come and join me in Philadelphia. And that's how MIO was born.
What other products do you create today?
Well, from that collection, what remained was the grid wall pockets, which is just an organizer made out of recycled felt. The Tangent was a product that I guess people really recognized us for, and it was a very exciting material. It was the recycled pulp, basically, is what it was. And so we make the paper forms, we make the grid. We then added lighting products, which we designed with a local millinery here in Philadelphia. So we have the capsule light, the shroom light. Then after that came the bend-and lamp. Then an additional pattern for the paper forms, which is flow. Then we added, there was origami table, the nomad system. I mean, every year we just kept adding like 3 products at a time, and then the soft bowls, and it just kept going on and on. And it was really more of a holistic concept. We knew that it was not about one particular area. There's a lot of companies out there that are dedicated, and they say, well, all we do is we work with sustainable, woods, and we make sustainable wood products. Or for us, it was more about having people understand what that sustainability could be in all of these things, in all the things that surround us, everything that is around in our lives. And of course, we focused on furnishings and accessories because that's where I guess the origins of it came from. And there are things that are very close to people, that people experience on a daily basis. And it's a very fertile ground for trickling down ideas. Because if you're sitting on something that's sustainable, if you're eating on something that's sustainable, it's all around you, then you really start thinking differently about how you do everything in your life. And I think that's what's exciting about furniture and accessories.
How do your production techniques incorporate environmental technology?
Well, what we try to focus on is looking at existing infrastructures. For instance, with the paper forms, we look and see that there's obviously a paper recycling infrastructure in place, and that it's not going to go away. At least I don't think in the next probably 3 decades, the way I see it. And it can be a renewable material, and it can be certified, and you can make this a material that is applicable to other categories, not just packaging and the traditional disposables. So we said, here's an infrastructure. There are technologies out there in place that people kind of view as disposable and as cheap. And how do you elevate that? Well, it's a question of design. So that's really our approach. Our approach is to look at technologies, look at materials such as, let's say, wool felt, natural materials that are biodegradable, that could be compostable, that fit either a recycling infrastructure, that fit into a natural cycle, that have some built-in advantage that maybe the manufacturers and the consumers have not really realized, and we fully realize it with design. And that's really what is at the heart of MIO. We know that given our purchasing power and given the conditions of the marketplace, we cannot bulldoze through things and say, we're going to change the way you do things. We have to really be pragmatic, understand what the needs of the suppliers are, understand what the needs of the consumers are, and come in and make those necessary kind of, very, pragmatic choices in the design process and say, well, what if you change this chemical that you're using for this other chemical? Or what do you eliminate this process and therefore eliminate waste? So really look at it different. You have to step back, remove yourself, and look at it, not from an ego point of view, this is how I want it to look, but what could we make with what we have? And how can we stretch those resources to make even more, to make them work harder for us? And so that's kind of the MIO point of view in all of this. And I think that it's that's the point of view right now, but that's not to say that it won't evolve as things change. I think that we definitely have to become greener, and we definitely have to get away from materials that are, yes, they're better, they're what people are calling now environmentally preferable, but we also have to look into the future and say, what's next? What are the next materials? And I think that we're into that, but we're very realistic about what's going on right now. What is the economic situation, what is the political situation, what is the reality in the marketplace, and how do we fit into that marketplace?
Well, going back to the materials that you use for a minute, you mentioned a few, such as the soy ink. What kinds of other materials do you use, and what would you like to see MIO using in the future as far as sustainable materials?
Well, we use, there's cardboard, there's molded paper, there is felt, there is cork, there is aluminum, there's steel, and we try and keep it like single material so that there's not many components that you're separating. Now, as far as what we're looking for, I mean, I have tons of bins that I rummage through, and there's everything from recycled plastics to, different kinds of woods and particle boards, and, there's all these alternatives out there, and a lot of them surprisingly have been out there for decades. It's just a question of finding the perfect application. Recycled rubbers, linoleums. I mean, we are limited by our own perception of the materials as designers, and I think that's the challenge for me. It's not that tomorrow I'm going to come out and find a material and people are going to be like, wow, that's a new material. It's more like I'm going to come out and I'm going to say, guys, we've been using this for the wrong purpose all along, and I'm going to challenge the way you perceive those materials. And I think that's my role at the moment. It's not so much a developer of materials, but an agent of change for perception of materials and understanding of how they can be used in a sustainable fashion.
Describe for us a typical design process for making one of your products from start to finish.
Okay, that's interesting. I mean, I don't think there's any typical approach, except that everything has, a beginning where we do a lot of research, and the research focuses in two areas. One of the areas is materials, and the other area is really behavior. I call it behavior, but it's really kind of applications and looking at how people live and how people use the things around them. So those are the two things. And let's say I'll find a particular quote-unquote behavior, like, people like to organize things in their desk a certain way, and I'll get excited about that, or I'll get excited about, look at how people, like, sit on these surfaces, or look how they're using these containers to sit on them. Like, I'll find a very specific kind of behavior, and I'll start working around that and kind of investigating it more and more. And by investigating, I mean documenting it, going out to the streets, looking at, family, looking at friends, bringing these things inside the home, and really playing with them, like experimenting in a very, I would say, an empirical fashion, but just documenting it all. And then going online and looking at comparable things and how they work and how they've been made in the past, and asking a lot of questions about them. Then with the material side of things, it's really about being on the lookout, contacting lots of suppliers, ordering lots of samples, keeping these samples around, getting information about the pricing of these things, about how they're manufactured, about the adhesives, like just being very, very curious. And then all of a sudden, what happens is that I'll be working on looking at a particular behavior, looking at a particular material, and I'll say, you know what, there's a match right there. There's a technology that requires a particular volume, and there's let's say a seat, just to take an example. And here's a material, it has these properties, and here's a need for a seat that does this. So that's a good match. And once there's a good match, then I start looking at how I could make that particular behavior fit that material and that technology and that process. And that's how it evolves.
Well, what do you and your brother Isaac see for the future of MIO, like in the next 3 to 5 years?
I think, the company is growing very quickly, and we're able to get into more categories and look at more products, and I think that is excellent. I think we're able to, touch more people with our message and the way we do things, and I think we make more people aware, and we bring the story of sustainability to people who would otherwise be kind of disenfranchised by the price of it or by the way it is told, or, so no fear, no guilt, none of that. It's about exciting, contemporary products that people can relate to, and I think that's where we're headed. We're heading to growing the collection, growing the way that we're communicating, the ways in which we're communicating with the clients, with our customers, and it's very exciting because what we're trying to do right now is I think slowly we'll shift towards giving even more power to the consumer. Let them make more of those decisions. We'll pre-chew whatever has to be pre-chewed, but we'll let customers make decisions about how the product should be made and what they need. I think customers sometimes do know best, and you have to listen to them. And then the other part of it is that right now, if you look at the majority of our products, I think you buy the product and you get an environmental benefit that is kind of like a one-shot deal. You say, I'm going to buy this lamp. This lamp ships flat, which is going to reduce the cost of transportation. It's going to reduce the impact of transportation. Wonderful. But that transportation is only going to happen once. And at the end of the life cycle, it's going to get recycled. And yes, there is recycled content in the material of the lamp, for instance, in the bend lamp. But it's a one-shot deal. And every time you use it, well, there is no additional benefit, let's say. Now, if you look at something like a compact fluorescent bulb, every time you turn it on, yes, you're using energy, but you're using less energy. So there's this active element to it. And I think that we are very interested here and very keen at MIO to realize that there's an opportunity for products that are more active, that there is an involvement, that every time you use them, there is a benefit that's going to occur. And we are very interested in that and kind of filling the void that is in the product landscape right now regarding this topic. I think it's fairly limited, but the opportunities are pretty much unlimited as far as I'm concerned. I think every object should be extremely smart about how it uses resources, and it should help and encourage others to get the most with the least.
Well, Jaime Salm, thank you for joining us today, and best of luck to you and to MIO.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having us. It's a pleasure.
For more information and to order MIO's creations, check out mioculture.com. For more information and past episodes of the Greener Business Show, visit us at greenerbusinessshow.org.